Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a question that has, fascinated and honestly frustrated psychologists for more than 100 years.
All right, so let's just dive right in. We all use words like smart or intelligent all the time, right? But what do they actually mean? Well, turns out that's a puzzle scientists have been trying to crack for a very long time.
So one of the first real stabs at a definition came way back in 1905 from a French psychologist named Alfred Binet. He saw intelligence as this mix of good judgment and solid reasoning. It sounds simple and elegant, right? But as we'll see, that was really just the opening shot in a much, much bigger debate. And yeah, almost as soon as experts started digging into this stuff, they started arguing. Was it about thinking in the abstract, or was it about how will you learn? Or maybe it was all about adapting to new things? This right here, this disagreement became the core tension of the whole field. There was just no single easy answer to be found.
So that naturally led to the first huge question. Is intelligence one big thing, like a single powerhouse ability? Or is it more like a toolbox, filled with lots of different separate skills? Well, the first big theory came from a guy named Charles Spearman. He noticed something really interesting. People who were good at one type of mental test, they tended to be pretty good at other ones too. This led him to propose this idea of a single general intelligence, which he called the G factor. Think of it like an all-purpose mental energy you could use for pretty much anything. It's a really neat and tidy idea for sure, but it just didn't quite seem to cover the whole picture. How could a single G factor explain, say, a musical genius who's terrible at math, or an amazing athlete who isn't a great writer? It just didn't add up. And this is where the story gets a major plot twist. Fast forward to 1983, and a psychologist named Howard Gardner just completely flips the script. He basically said, hey, let's stop looking for one thing called intelligence, and instead, he gave us his theory of multiple intelligences.
So, Gardner's model suggested there isn't just one way to be smart, but at least 8 different kinds of smarts. You've got word smarts for a poet, body smarts for a dancer, and so on. Now, it's a super popular theory, especially in education. But I should mention, some psychologists have criticized it for not having enough hard scientific evidence. Still, you can't deny its impact. It totally blew the definition of smart wide open.
And you can really see how the whole field was starting to shift. Around the same time, another big name, Robert Sternberg, came out with his own model. His triarchic theory pictures intelligence as these 3 interconnected parts. You've got analytical intelligence, that's your classic book smarts for problem solving. Then there's creative intelligence for thinking outside the box, and finally, practical intelligence, your street smarts for just getting by in the real world. Okay, so we have all these competing ideas about what intelligence is. The next logical step for scientists was pretty obvious. Can we actually put a number on it? Can we measure this thing? And that question led to one of the most famous and, let's be honest, controversial ideas in psychology, the intelligence quotient, or IQ. The whole point was to create a standardized score, a way to measure and compare a person's mental horsepower, so to speak. The very first formula, cooked up by William Stern back in 1912, was actually pretty simple. It just compared your mental age, so the age level you're thinking at, to your actual chronological age. If your mental age and your real age were the same, boom, your IQ was 100. That was considered average. Now, today's IQ tests work a little differently. It's not really about an absolute score anymore. It's all about where you land on this bell curve compared to everyone else. The average is always set at 100, and most people, about 68% of us, fall somewhere in that middle chunk, between 85 and 115. Okay. So if we can measure it, that brings up a really deep question, maybe the question. Are we born smart, or do we become smart? How much of it is baked into our DNA and how much is shaped by our life story?
And that, of course, is the classic nature versus nurture debate. You've got nature on one side, that's heredity, the idea that our intelligence is mostly handed down by our genes, and on the other side you've got nurture. The argument that our experiences, our education, our whole environment is what really carves out who we become intellectually.
So how do we figure this out? Well, studies on identical twins who have the exact same genes have given us some of the biggest clues. Check this out. Identical twins raised in the same house have super similar IQs. But here's the kicker. Even when they're raised in totally different families, their IQs are still remarkably close, just not as close. That's some pretty powerful evidence that both sides of the coin, both nature and nurture, are definitely in the game. So the takeaway here is absolutely crucial. It's not nature or nurture. It's both. The general thinking today is that our genes might set a kind of potential range for our intelligence, but it's our environment, our schooling, our health, the opportunities we get, that plays a huge role in determining where we actually land within that range.
All right, for our last section, let's see how this all comes together into a much bigger, broader idea of what it means to be smart. We're going to move beyond just book smarts or raw brain power.
So in the last few decades, psychologists started championing this whole new idea, emotional intelligence, or EQ. And this definition from the pioneer, Sullivan Mayer, really nails it. It's the feeling side of being smart. It's about understanding and managing emotions, not just in ourselves, but in other people too.
And this model here, which was made famous by Daniel Goleman, really gives you a great snapshot of the modern view. It breaks EQ down into these skills that we now see are just so critical for success in life. Being self-aware, managing your own emotions, understanding others, and handling relationships well. It's just not about what you know anymore, it's about how you navigate the world and the people in it.
So that leaves us with one last thought. We started this whole thing looking for one simple definition of smart, right? And what we found was this huge universe of different kinds of intelligence. Turns out, being smart isn't just about solving puzzles or knowing big words. It's about how you learn, how you adapt to change, how you create things, and how you connect with other people. So I guess the only question left to ask is, how are you smart?